Hello everyone, I am Tacet, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Paint by the Numbers event, in which the Tuliao is added to the game. So this thing is pretty interesting. We've already had a troop like this that ends up doing a half mana to a single ally in an enchant, but this is quite a bit different in that it's similar, but it does it to basically your entire team for only 2 higher mana costs. The other one was 11 mana costs, and this thing is 13, both the same color, so you would never actually use them together. But this has potential on being relatively viable. It's kind of like a Leprechaun that skips your turn, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing because there are situations where, due to not wanting to give the enemy anything, if you already know the board has nothing good for the enemy, there are some instances where you would not want to board clear, and she is basically going to be used for that purpose. Essentially what she does is she chooses a certain color, and one nice thing about this is she does not destroy or remove it, so it doesn't have any board control whatsoever, which is normally a bad thing, but in her case it's actually a good utility, since it gives her some it distinguishes her from that of Leprechaun, but it then enchants all allies, including herself, of that color. So if you target it on something like green or yellow, and your entire team is green or yellow, you will go and enchant the entire team, including herself, after she has just casted. On top of that, it also gives 6 mana to each of them, and that is boost ratioed based on how much of that color is on the board. Keep in mind, enchant does trigger immediately as well, so by default, anything that you end up targeting this for, even if there's only one of that color on the board, will end up giving every single one of your allies 8 as well as enchant, because unless they dispel you immediately, you're going to be getting that 2 additional mana from the enchant that you just placed. And given how many of that color would normally be on the board, you're probably going to get at least 2 additional, if not 3, meaning she could give about as much consistently as about 11 mana to your entire team every single time she casts, and that's for only 13 mana cost. So that's going to be pretty good. You'll use this strategically basically when the board has nothing good on it, or it's about to go and give something to the enemy if you were to take a move, basically just to skip your turn. They are good to have. Generally, you don't run too many of these onto your team, just because looping tends to be better than passing your turn, but it is unique in that it's one of the better mana generators that has the pass the turn capability, so it's probably going to be used for that purpose. I don't sure if it's really going to be meta for much, however, I'm going to be showing a bunch of teams with it later in this video, just kind of going over some of the things that she could be used for, as well as things throughout the week, as we normally do. But anyways, that's her. Also, if you want to stock up, this is an epic, so you do get arcane trade stones for 200 each if you want to go get a bunch of arcane lights. Do keep in mind, arcane lights are ridiculously easy to get simply by doing the Warrens faction, so you might not want to overbuy this, since this is already pretty much the easiest to obtain trade stone in the game as far as arcanes are concerned, but maybe if you need minor yellows or something, but still worth considering since epics only have them for 200 glory cost each. Other than that, as far as the normal event week stuff this week, we have ourselves the 10% bonus to Shentang and 10% to Elves, which has a little bit of overlap there. Particularly something like a Yaogwei is noteworthy in that regard. Also, if you end up using this thing in PvP, which is somewhat advised, you do end up getting 5 additional glory every single time you end up using it. And if you're looking for more glory, this event weekend is going to be the Vault Week, so you will be able to get a lot more glory and other resources through that as well. As far as the chest drop table right now, as far as event keys this week, it is, of course, as I mentioned, a Shentang event week. So as far as what the drop table is, it is everything right here with the exception of Doom of Darkness. Every single thing you see underneath the Shentang category, and then if you click show all, if you don't already own everything, we'll show everything that's available in event keys. And as I mentioned, Doom of Darkness is the only one that you won't be able to get from the event keys because it's only available through purple Dooms, and this week is a green Doom. But other than that, you can get everything else here. There isn't really too many good things from this kingdom. However, there are 2 somewhat noteworthy legends that you might want to spend event keys for if you don't already own them, both of which are extremely meta, and that is Yaogwei and Quillen. Quillen is normally synergized with Divine Ishbala in order to combine both their double converts into a pretty solid team. It also has a Lightstorm, which generally, if you're using a Divine Ishbala Quillen team, ends up benefiting quite a lot, and you don't have to end up sending Lightstorm onto your hero class, so it ends up being quite beneficial to have for that double skull spam team, if assuming you already have Divine Ishbala. Other than that, Yaogwei, always been a pretty good damage source since he has come out. He ends up hitting 2 enemies very hard, steals some magic from them, ends up getting a purple to red convert, which feeds right back to his mana, and he just keeps getting bigger and bigger as the battle goes on, because not only does he steal a bunch of magic every single time he casts, he also gains additional HP every single time you take red, which he can easily do from his convert. And as he gets more HP, he has a boost ratio based on his HP that determines how much damage he does, so he tends to get bigger and bigger as the battle goes on, and is a very, very quick damage option, mostly only used for PvP instances and Guild Wars, because it can't upscale for things like factions and stuff, but in the context of PvP and Guild Wars, it is definitely an option to consider. And it has 20% stats this week, so even more of a reason to go and get it and use it, as it's going to be an absolute powerhouse for damage, and it's really good at getting double kills. You basically cast it, nearly kill the first two, cast it again by getting all the mana off of convert, and then boom, you just got yourself an easy double kill, and basically just made it into a 4 versus 2, simply by just getting a lucky alignment off of Yagway. So highly, highly advised, if nothing else, to at least get that, and ideally you'll pick up a Quillen along the way. You don't really need to try for the mythics here. And by mythics, I mean mythic, because there's actually only one. Tanya did get buffed 2 patches ago. However, with that buff, he didn't really become viable. I still use him for one of my Guild War defends with Wild Queen. However, aside from that, I actually don't use him at all. There's better stunners out there, so you don't tend to really touch him. And if you're really looking for a good stun, you'd probably just go for Obsidious instead, as Obsidious is a much better option. So that's everything for the event keys. As far as our guild, we'll be going over some teams, but of course it is a Tower of Doom week. Nothing really too special here, kind of just a standard Tower of Doom week. Of course, we end up getting a weapon from it, and it's a pretty useless one. This whole cycle of 6 Doom weapons is pretty bad. As many of you know, the only good Doom weapons currently in the game are the 6 Doom weapons that do full AoE damage that then convert a color into Doom Skulls. Any Doom weapon that aren't those in the current state of the game are pretty much useless, and you should not be throwing scrolls into anything other than the full AoE ones that end up creating Doom Skulls. If it's any of them like this, or any of them that don't do that, it is worth just skipping on them. You might still want to get it for collection purposes, but you don't want to actually use your scrolls on it, as the scrolls will probably be better used on the next cycle, hopefully, of Doom weapons being a bit better. I believe we almost have all of them from this cycle, so hopefully a few months from now we'll start seeing some good Doom weapons again, other than this the standard 6 that are pretty much the only ones in existence. But yeah, you can get it if you want. It's 500 gems. You can get it in Soulforge too, though I do advise getting it through 500 gems rather than through Soulforge, since you'll also be able to get the event done. And other than that, you mostly just want to go and, of course, as always, report back to your guild all of the better rooms, like the luck, the fireball, the heroisms, and the unlocks, of course, which are the ones that you just normally move on with. Other than that, we have ourselves, also we'll be doing that later tonight as well, going over a bunch of Tower of Doom at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Other than that, as far as some things we have going on throughout the week, tomorrow, Tuesday, we have ourselves a faction assault for Dark Pits. Again, tomorrow night, Tuesday, at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so tomorrow's night. We will be doing a Pure faction for Dark Pits, so if any of you want to go see that, we'll be running through the entirety of the faction all at once tomorrow night. But this is going to be a somewhat noteworthy faction, because probably a lot of people don't have this done due to this faction being prior to potions existing, and it actually is somewhat viable to consider upgrading factions now, as the next delve, if you're really high renown, the next delve that ends up getting released will be able to go and give a +1 magic, and you're going to need a lot of upgraded kingdoms for that, and Dark Pits might be able to help you there. If you're over 40,000, it is somewhat advised to do. However, if you're below 40,000, you could probably just ignore it for now, as it's going to be a little bit hard to get to 44,000 with just one more faction. You probably need to wait till at least 2 more factions until we can. But it is technically possible as of next faction to have a +1 magic bonus, and for that reason, it is worth considering upgrading if you're already pretty far above 40,000 to upgrade all of the factions that you don't currently have maxed out to max, so that you're going to be a little bit closer to being able to reach that goal. But other than that, we have a holiday for Australia, and we're going to be getting a cosmetic pet this Wednesday. We're probably going to also have a special adventure board like we did for the Lunar New Year's, where we end up getting 100 gems. Not sure if they're just going to do a standard 100 gems each time, but hopefully we'll see some other unique things, though definitely can't complain about 100 gems, that's for sure. But we'll have that this Wednesday as far as that cosmetic pet, so nothing for bonus, just a normal holiday pet. Thursday we have Bard. Bard is okay. I feel like I don't really use it that often. It's noteworthy in that it is immune to silence and gives +1 to all yellows per turn, so it's somewhat good for yellow Guild War Day. I find myself almost never using it, though. It might become really viable as more wild folks come into the kingdom of Pan's Vale, but as it currently stands, I'd say it's just a little bit above average. I personally do not feel like it's used for much. And other than that, this Friday, we're not getting any new content this Friday. However, we do have a Vault event going on throughout this weekend. So any of the normal locations like PvP and Explore, where you go and fight and find a bunch of gnomes, you'll be able to have a much higher chance of finding gnomes, as well as specifically finding vault keys from those gnomes. So you'll be able to get way more gem values than you normally would from all these gnomes. You'll be able to get a bunch of glory, you'll be able to get a bunch of gems, you'll be able to get a bunch of keys, and you'll be able to get a bunch of vault keys, which if you haven't already gotten Cedric, you'll be able to get from that. And even if you already have Cedric, there's plenty of good drops within it, like orbs, gems, keys, and other valuable loots. It's definitely highly advised, so if you have some free time this weekend for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, highly advised to go grind Explore, as Explore is the quickest way that you can go get quick kills, low-level Explore, and just keep repeating that. So you'll get some tokens, get some hero class XP, get some hero XP, and more importantly than anything, you'll get a bunch of gnomes that you'll be able to go claim for various loots. Other than that, as far as Soul Forge this week, we have one thing that's kind of worth going for. Grey King. Personally not a huge fan of him, however, he is decent. He destroys all gems of a color, which is one of the main things I hate, and why I actually like the troop that came out today. I really hate ones that target a single color like that have a condition based on it. It's fine when they don't destroy it, like the one that just came out. I just really hate when they actually destroy it, because it just works very clunkily, I personally feel like. But anyways, and then all enemies of that color that you just destroyed will take a bunch of true damage, and then they will get mana drained, silence, and frozen. So he's a little bit similar to that of what Silent One was way back in the day, back when it had a mana drain plus silence, except it also has a freeze on top of it, and it has some true damage, with the only restriction really being that you have to go and take a gem off the board, which you do accumulate the mana, and you can then go and hit however many of that color on the board. So if you end up targeting brown and they have 3 browns, it'll do it to all 3 of them. However, if you have to go and for mana accumulation or board control purposes take something like a red, and there's only 1 red, well, it will only hit that 1 red enemy. And also that mana can be done right back into himself if he does blue, brown, and purple and is not blocked. He also has a little bit of an undead bonus, but not really too much under his traits. He's mostly used for his ability itself and pretty much just that purpose. Other than that, I wouldn't really advise going out of your way for it, but it is pretty noteworthy that if you really want it for whatever reason, Sylvain Moore is still considered one of the better entanglers in the game, because unlike some things that entangle randomly off their traits, this one actually consistently entangles the first slot every single time. And this is a particularly noteworthy option with skull spam, because as you skull spam, you'll automatically entangle whatever the first troop is. And one interesting thing about Sylvain Moore's final trait interaction is if you skull spam an enemy and get an extra turn, and then you lose your turn, let's say because you're frozen, it will end up retroactively every single time entangling the one next in line. So if you skull spam extra turn and kill the first slot, and then you ended your turn because of freeze or whatever reason, the entangle will automatically go to the next one in line, so you never need to worry about the entangle getting wasted, as it will always retroactively target whatever the next one is in the enemy team when combined with a skull spam team. So it's pretty decent for that. It can help if you don't have other options to survive in factions, and any faction that can use brown or green. Not the most sought after option, but still a decent option for Legends nonetheless. Probably not worth going out of your way for, but still worth mentioning. Other than that, as far as weapons are concerned, Sky Hero is the only one that's particularly useful, though I don't feel like I use it much. It destroys a column, and then for every single yellow gem destroys, it ends up creating 4 red. The biggest issue with this is it doesn't have a high enough static. It has like a really big boost ratio, but the static amount of gems that it creates just isn't high enough, so you need to make sure you have a lot of yellow on the board. There are quite a few teams that can end up having a lot of yellow and red on the board, like for example Divine Ishbala Quillen will generally have a pretty high amount that you'll be able to go and use to get Quillen back up. But it's very, very situational. But in any situation where you do have a lot of yellows, it will get a lot of value. Since if you even just hit something like 3 yellows, you're already up to a 16 gem spawn for red, which is really, really good. But it's just really dependent on yellow and super situational, but still a weapon to have, as in those situations you might want to make sure you have it. It's not the best weapon, but if you're going to craft anything weapon-wise, that is the one to go for. There are a few other weapons that are, of course, here. There's the hook sword, nothing really too good with this. Shentang pure, running pure Shentang isn't really that useful at the moment. There's also currently no Shentang hero class yet. I forget if that's the next class or not. But at the moment, this weapon isn't going to be too good. However, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Shentang is getting Bard hero class, which was going to be a very, very powerful class in general. It's going to be almost like as good as Titan. Not sure if this weapon's actually going to be good for it, but you might want to get it for that purpose, as similarly as many of these double convert weapons go. It isn't currently good now, but it probably will be good sometime in the future. So I don't know, now that I say that, it might actually be worth somewhat considering, but It's I guess it could be better than Sky Hero. They both serve really different purposes. Obviously, this for pure Shantang, and this for red mana accumulation on teams that create yellow. Both of which are super situational, so get them at your own discretion. Other than that, this weapon I highly advise just getting for 500 gems from the Doom. However, it is in Soulforge if you're planning on not really doing much of the Doom event. It's mostly just for collection purposes. You'd almost never use it. However, it is a bit more noteworthy than some of the other ones in that it does create red or skulls and green. And this is somewhat noteworthy as this actually synergizes with Wild Queen that also creates green and skulls. Not sure if you'd really go out of your way to use this with Wild Queen. However, it does have some synergy in that regard since they both do the exact same thing. And other than that, this weapon is completely useless. However, it is a collection purpose weapon if you want to go get it. Just a light staff. Nothing really too important about this, but it's pretty cheap, and if you just want to get it to just have it, it is available this week. So do be mindful that those are the 4 weapons. Light staff, Doomed Labyrinth, which you can easily just get from the Doom event, Hooked Sword, and Sky Hero. So as far as that, I have a lot of teams I want to go show. So as I mentioned, this new troop is actually pretty good. It is definitely not bad. It's going to be weird, the kind of teams that you build with it, but it's going to be an alternative Leprechaun. It's not going to be better than Leprechaun, but there are situations that you can use it with or instead of a Leprechaun, and we'll be just going through a bunch of teams right now. So this right now is a cheap green Doom team. I'll just be showing in PvP for the sake that we're pretty low on Dooms right now. So all of these I'll just be showing in PvP. But this, of course, is a super cheap team. Nothing on this team is particularly hard to get. This you can get for 400 glory this week. Rowanne you get for free from completing out Forest of Thorns. The Leprechaun you do have to get by random luck. However, you can get it from glory or gem keys as a random drop. And other than that, Urskaya Shield, you go and complete out their Urskaya Kingdom, get 250 wins on the Urskaya Hero class, and then you end up getting Urskaya Shield, which takes about a few hours to go and grind that out if you don't already have it. And basically the whole premise of this team is you go and feed Rowanne a bunch of armor, and you just keep doing this over and over and over again. You don't actually cast her until you have one-shot range, because of course this is for Tower of Doom. You do this and just keep upscaling over and over and over again. This weapon ends up increasing armor of an ally and barriering them, but it ends up boost ratioing off of attack, so it actually upscales, and you can use this to upscale your Rowanne. As far as what you do for mana accumulation, you actually use the new troop on Brown in order to go and mana accumulate for it. And then we could just basically just go and keep cycling with Rowanne and just keep going, buffing it up, and repeat your mana accumulation. Unfortunately, we did just get frozen there. That is very unfortunate. Wish that would not have happened, because right now we would go for Leprechaun if we actually had the mana. However, since he just froze us, I guess we're going to have to manually take a little bit of mana here, since he unfortunately froze, but luckily he just gives all that to us. A little bit short on mana, but if we don't have anything too good, we can actually just pass our turn, see that he doesn't have anything particularly good to take, and we just go for something like green, get over our mana up. As you can see, she almost fulls out her own mana. We're about to cast Rowanne, and on the following turn, she would already be ready to go and cast again, so a lot of mana accumulation right there. And then we just, of course, go with the Rowanne, kill it all out, and yeah, nice cheap team to go through Tower of Doom. Possibly not the best of options, but it's ridiculously easy to obtain relative to most anything else that you would end up running within the Doom. And now for a little bit of a higher version of a Doom team. Same premise. We're actually going to be going with a Tuliao again, except this time our team is actually pure green. Urskaya Shield, of course, had to be brown because it only uses one color of brown, and that was the only thing that really can upscale cheaply for Rowanne. But in this case, we actually have a dual color weapon that we'll be able to go do the same general premise with, where we're going to be feeding up a bunch of HP to all of our Ketrases, and then we'll be able to go target green every single time, which will not just enchant 3 of our things, but all 4 of them, and then we just rinse and repeat. So, of course, this is meant for Tower of Doom, so it's meant more so to upscale. So we just go target green, ideally have a lot of greens, and we almost get the weapon up every single time. You then retarget with the weapon. You can see her own mana goes pretty much to full every single time, and you can cycle this quicker than it has ever really been able to cycle before. As you can see, as long as there's enough green, we'll actually get all the way to full. Sometimes we'll have to wait a turn. However, of course, since you're already using some Ketrases, we can go and throw a poke, and with our time down, we can just go and get a Ketras in there, and just get a poke and dead. So ends up cycling pretty well. Better than even a Leprechaun or something would, which generally in that team, if you were using pure green, is the option that you would have gone for prior. But in this particular instance, she is actually better than a Leprechaun, so kind of interesting. Also, do I really have to go skip a Revenge? Fine, I'll go to casual PvP. We're not skipping a Revenge. Here, we have a Ketras team to go fight with Freeze. Anyways, next, Tuliao Low. This is just kind of a standard Tuliao team, same as the other one. This one is not specifically meant for, keep in mind, this is not meant for green Tower of Doom. This is just happens to be pure green. I feel like most of the teams that end up getting used with her just happen to be pure green. This one is not actually meant for the Doom, though. And the main reason is green tends to have more options as far as yellow, to be able to compose a full team out of, at least at this current moment in time. So right here, we can actually go in and get in a free Entangle and free Poke off of Dire Wolf. Dire Wolf, actually, surprisingly, one of the best combos in the game. It's pretty noteworthy, even that it has a double skull damage whenever they're tangled, a 20% dodge, and another double skull damage which stacks with that other double whenever their hunter's marked, meaning he can get 4 times skull damage. Ends up working out for quite a bit of damage. One nice thing about this is actually a Essence of Evil cycle team. You can, of course, make a higher level Essence of Evil cycle, but the basic premise of this is we go and throw Essence of Evil, throw down the Tuliao, and you can just keep going back and forth. So right here, of course, we could go for a Tuliao. If there's enough greens on the board, we can actually go for a free Poke off of our first slot, and we just keep kind of going back and forth in order to go and feed it mana. One nice thing about this, too, is we don't actually have to worry about the fact that they both use pure green. She can completely ignore that fact by giving them mana directly. One thing that you normally have to worry about when you're using something like a Leprechaun, for example, is his mana goes to the first slot, then the second, and the third, so on and so forth. However, she gives mana to everything at the exact same time. So you can see we can keep just throwing down this as a free Poke without actually blocking this, because we'll go get another disable, and now we can go our very next turn. We'll be able to go do this on green, and we won't be blocked. So if there was enough greens again, we could go for that Poke for free, and then just go into one of our other options without being blocked at all on our team. But we don't have that at the moment, so let's go for some Leprechaun. That's mostly just there as a backup mana accumulator, and just to make sure it goes a bit quicker. If you really want to, you could actually use a damage source rather than Leprechaun, but I just ended up opting for the Leprechaun method here. But we'll go and get another disable. If anything else, it makes it really easy to go and disable everything with Essence of Evil. Again, everything on this team really easy to obtain. The only thing that's really different here, obviously common use scale for gold keys. Only real difference here is Essence of Evil. You get this from 250 wins off the Plague Lord hero class, which you accumulate from Darkstone. Same thing as Urskaya shield, you just do it for Darkstone for Plague Lord class. 250 wins, and then you have the weapon. So right here, I don't think we have enough green, so we can't get it down for free. However, we can just do this on green again, get our team buffed. Still don't have enough green to do anything, so let's go for another Leprechaun. Let's get the board clear, and then we just keep disabling. I guess we'll go refresh the disable on first slot. Then we'll go and probably do green again. I do not believe we have enough of those, so we'll just go and target the green, get our manas up. Not enough to do that yet. I guess we'll go past our turns by doing this. Just get a little bit of Poke. They do have Fairy Fire due to Essence of Evil, so that can kind of chip it down. They also take double damage from every single one of those skulls because of Hunter's Mark. So right here, I don't believe we have enough damage. However, we get this Leprechaun and get the Explosion to kill it. And get another Essence of Evil and keep stacking bleed, keep refreshing the disable so it stays disabled, and then we can just take a skull, and this skull is actually going to be doing 4 times damage because it's entangled and Hunter's Mark, and between that ends up getting a 4 times multiplier, which comes out to, what, 180 damage? Did I do the math right? Somewhere around there. But there we go, and easily just one-shots it. And yeah, that common easily hitting over 100 in many of those instances, while you can just keep spamming Essence of Evil for a bunch of disable. Really cheap team, and actually works out quite decently. Other than that, Tuliao High. I personally feel like this one doesn't work as well. However, it's a kind of funny team, so I figured I might as well show it. On this team, we're going a +2 yellow again. You might notice I'm using the spanner a lot. +2 yellow, +1 green, -1 blue. It's one of the other reasons for focusing a little bit more onto green than... actually, then again, I guess yellow actually has this exact same option, but as far as banner. But ends up working out pretty well to end up feeding her immediately, so you don't end up blocking her. Because right now we can just take yellow to almost get her up immediately. At least if we get lucky enough to get Surge, there we go. So we have Doomed Glaive here. This is just running one of the Doom weapons so that we can go and get a bunch of AoE hits down. Whenever we don't really have much of an option, like right here, we can actually just go and, again, do this on green. One interesting thing about using Mythics with this troop is green and yellow Mythics technically got a bit of a buff as of her just coming out. Because now you can go use this on green or yellow and have 2 options. Many of the teams I've shown so far, or all of the teams I've shown so far, really only have one real targeting option. Well, I guess the Ketras team I just showed had both brown and green, though you would normally want to do it on green. However, this has 2 options, green and yellow. Green would end up hitting 4, and yellow will end up hitting 3 onto your team. So right here, we're actually going to, since we already have the mana, we can see which one is higher. Unfortunately, neither of them has a higher boost ratio, so we could do yellow or green, won't really matter in this instance, and get over our mana up. and still don't have the Doomed Axe, or Doomed Glaive, so we're going to hold on that. Ideally, we'll take some mana that feeds into our last slot, given that it's a bit lower. He's still entangled, so I think I'm going to bait out a Skull for him. Unfortunately, of course, he gets unentangled at the exact time he needs to. We don't have any good alignment here, so we're probably just going to Worldbreaker to clear the board. Going to want to get a Weaver soon, probably just to disable out some of his magic. Don't currently have any alignment, unfortunately. I could still do it for the AoE damage, though I think I am going to hold. We could also go and get a bunch of mana. We can end up seeing pretty much immediately how much we're going to be accumulating. We can see based on boost ratio, we're going to be getting a 3 additional mana, so 9, and then the enchant, so 11, which obviously will not be enough for our trip to get to full mana. So we're going to probably hold for now. Then again, actually I'm not going to hold, because this is going to give her enough mana that she'll get up anyways in 2 turns. This will now allow the other one to get up in 2 turns, and with this we'll go through our Weaver with our other turn, and then have an option for the follow-up. So right here, he did get an Entangle on us, and of course as soon as we get alignment he gets Entangle, but that shouldn't really matter too much, because we've been throwing AoE this entire time with Worldbreaker, and he's essentially already dead. We just throw another AoE, and even while entangled it still completely kills through. And one nice thing about this team, and why it's wanting the Weaver all the way in lat slot, is whenever our hero dies, which with this team it assumes it will die, we will get a Web Spinner there, and then you have a triple damage Web Spinner in first slot, and the capability to still do on green to go a mana accumulate for your entire team, including the newly created Web Spinner. So it ends up working out pretty well in that regard. Not the best of teams, but it's a nice unique mechanic that ends up happening. So that's the last team I wanted to show as far as actually battling with it. However, there are a few other things just to mention. Of course, Dark Pits tomorrow. I'll probably be running Forest Troll Double Truffle into Doomed Glaive again. If you don't have Doomed Glaive, the previous team I showed does not have a replacement for Doomed Glaive. However, this one can be replaced with pretty much any cleanse. So if you want to run Chagris Heart, even if you just want to run a Mountain Crusher, or any kind of weapon that creates Green Storm, any of those options will end up working out pretty well. You don't have to use Doomed Glaive for this one. It just happens to work a little bit quicker than other options. But Forest Troll and Double Truffle is the main components of this team. Unfortunately, it is a brown-green, so you can't go the 50% mana shot, the 50% mana start with it. However, you can just use hero with whatever option you want, and just roll it that way. And if you run it with Warden, you can also run with Dispel while having a Green Storm start, which ends up working out pretty well. And then with your weapon, you can just keep refreshing Green Storm. Doomed Glaive has that capability, but plenty of other weapons also have it. Other than that, for Pure Faction, we're going to be trying to do it with Sledge Paw, double Hex Rat, and a Plague Rat, basically running everything except the one that runs those random stats effects. This is mainly because the random stats effects is pretty inconsistent, and to depend on that for your win is going to be a little bit annoying. The Sledge Paw is here basically just a tank. Its ability is pretty bad. However, it's the tankiest one in this entire kingdom, so you kind of have to run it. Hex Rat will be your main damage source. You keep hitting first slot and it'll just hit down everything. Unfortunately, it does not have that many curses within the kingdom itself to really synergize for the double damage. However, you're still with potion effects. If you're running with potions, you're going to be hitting like around 100 or something, if not higher. So you'll just be able to keep chipping them down by constantly doing rats. I also have the mana to +2 purple rather than +2 brown for that reason, to be able to get the Hex Rats up ideally in 2 turns, because if even one of them end up getting the Surge, you'll end up getting all the mana you need in order to go and get it to full within 2 turns. And the Plague Rat here is basically just a mana accumulation method. It will end up exploding a bunch of brown gems, and then it poison and diseases 2 random enemies. Unfortunately, it has no curse there to help synergize, but one nice thing it does have is impervious, so you don't need to worry about any kind of annoying stats effects, at least on that one, if nothing else. However, inversely, you will have to worry about it on the enemy, since the enemy, of course, on the first and final battle will have a impervious. Though this faction is nice in that it's a 3-room faction, which is tied at the lowest that you would ever need to do. So you only have the first room, one little middle room, and then you're already in the final room. So a very short path at least to be able to reach it. If I'm not mistaken, there is a tier 5 in between, but you can just keep re-rolling if you really need, if it is a annoying tier 5. And I believe there's a side path that has a double room if you want to go and take that if the tier 5 is a little bit too annoying. And then there's the second Hex Rat, of course, to be able to push a little bit more damage, and also ends up gaining some damage off an extra turn. But the main premise here is you just throw AoE into AoE, keep throwing it on first slot, and just keep tanking with Sledge Paw. Use them for board control as you need, use the Plague Rat for mana accumulation, and that's pretty much the whole strategy. And other than that, of course, we have Bard class event this Thursday. You can pretty much run with any hero weapon followed by triple Luna. Luna has a nice mechanic where if you take a yellow, she explodes a bunch of gems. So you take a single yellow, and you're going to be exploding 3 gems every single time. so you'll be able to get a lot of value out of every single yellow you end up taking. This is a Dawnbringer variant, but of course you can run it with other cheaper variants if you so choose, if you do not have Dawnbringer. But other than that, that will wrap it up for this video. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. But yeah, don't forget, Vault event this weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're getting a new pet on Wednesday. I'll be streaming tonight, going over Tower of Doom at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'll be streaming tomorrow night on Tuesday to go stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, same time, here as always, to go do not Tower of Doom, to go do the faction, the pure faction for Dark Pits, which will finally give us enough points that when new faction comes out in a few weeks, we'll be able to go get that +1 magic bonus. So anyways, guys, any other questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone.